Would you blame the death of your daughter on the Biden-Harris administration?
I would blame them essentially for my daughter's death.
June 17th, a young woman's body is found in a North Houston creek by a woman just passing by, and that discovery has ignited a firestorm. We now know the body was that of 12-year-old Jocelyn Nungaray.
These two Venezuelan illegal immigrants were in custody. They were in federal custody. All the administration had to do was follow the law, and put them on a plane and fly them back to Venezuela.
This is the location where 12-year-old Jocelyn Nungaray was found dead after she was brutally murdered and raped by two Venezuelan migrants that came into the country. I'm going to go interview the mother right now and talk to her about what happened, what we can learn, and how she's dealing with this. This is going to be a very interesting and insightful interview. I hope you guys enjoy and can take a thing or two away from it. Now, enjoy the interview.
Did you know about the open border policies, and did you know that this stuff was happening here in America until what happened with Jocelyn?
Essentially, no, I really didn't know how bad our border had become. I didn't realize. I knew we had more. I knew we had more open policies, just because, a lot more immigrants of all kind had been coming here a lot more often and more frequently, but I really didn't understand the severity of it until it hit directly in my home. Mm-hmm. And with Jocelyn not being here, it's really forced me to really pay attention to the policies we have for this country, because her death could have been prevented. Mm-hmm. And it could have been she could be here still. She should still be here. She would still be here if we didn't have the policies we have now in place.
Yeah, I was doing some research because I wanted to make sure everything was factual. And when Joe Biden got in office, he reversed 89 executive orders to reverse what Donald Trump has done.
It is true that during Joe Biden's first 364 days as president, Biden took 296 executive actions on immigration, and out of those 296 executive actions, 89 of those have reversed or started to undo Donald Trump's policies that Donald Trump put into place when he was president.
We know that criminals have been let into the United States. We know that Donald Trump says prisons have been opened. Mm-hmm. And we know that there are gang members here. We see it in Aurora, Colorado, New York City. Migrants are literally being housed inside hotels. Mm-hmm. But that's maybe not just a few of them, but they're everywhere here inside the United States. And how did migrants end up living so close to you? Because I read the thing that one of them had an ankle monitor on him. Is that correct?
I believe so. Yes, he did, and he just simply cut it off. Like I don't understand what was the purpose of putting an ankle monitor on them. For one, why place one on in the first place? Was anything discovered when even running anything on them? Did y'all run anything on them in the system? How did you find out that they needed an ankle monitor? There's so many questions I have. Why simply release them with an ankle monitor? They had no reason to be released after they were detained. And they were incredibly close to home. It's still in the air. It's speculation at this moment if they are organized with this gang, because this gang essentially is a newer gang per se, and a lot of people don't have much knowledge on them. But they were incredibly close. They were just simply down the street from my home, and regardless of me knowing my daughter had no business being out late at all, anybody at any time of the day should still be safe wherever they're at. Mm-hmm. And they were just minutes away from her.
Did you ever see these migrants before, or
No, I've always kind of lived a quiet life. I would go to work, take my kids to school. I would go to work, I'd get off, I'd pick up her brother. She'd be home from school. We really just always stayed in the house, so I always expressed to her the safety of being out, the safety of strangers, there's bad people in this world who do bad things, and I tried my best to give her and let her know that it's not a world full of rainbows and daisies, and kids are just going to be kids essentially because they don't understand that level of maturity. I personally have never seen them. I'm gonna hope she's never seen them either.
Was there any contact before between these guys, or what happened? We know she snuck out of the house late at night. You were asleep.
I was. We had just got back from our family vacation for being gone for a week, right outside, about an hour and a half outside of San Antonio. And we came back and drove back into town that early, like around noon on a Sunday. And that Sunday, I was just getting ready to get myself back for work that week because I knew I had to work back on Monday. She was still doing summer school on her laptop, so I was expressing for her to please. She loved staying up late. She was a night owl. She just loved watching movies, being on her phone, talking to her friends. I get it. Summer's technically started, but for her, she still had school to do. So I had asked her before I went to bed, please do not stay up late, more just so it's not such a hassle to get her up in the morning. Please don't go to bed late so we can get up early. You're coming to work with me in the morning, okay? She was like, okay, I know. And she, usually she sometimes would go to bed super late, but I never had to worry about her leaving the house because she, to my knowledge, wasn't leaving. She, I'd wake up sometimes at midnight, 12:30, just to go to the bathroom or get something to drink, and I still hear her giggling in her room. Like, she was just a homebody that just liked being up late. And I'm just gonna hope that and pray that she was just somewhere at the wrong place at the wrong time. I was cautious with who she spoke with on the phone with. I had parental apps on there. She couldn't download whatever she wanted. She had asked permission. Her phone shut down at a certain time, which I'm essentially thinking as to why she took her brother's phone, because her brother's in bed by 8:30, so I don't have to worry about him sneaking on his phone. He was 5, and they slept in the same room together. They shared a room, and knowing she stays up late, I would always have her phone turn off by around 11:45 p.m. So kind of would force her to kind of go to bed soon. Yeah. But she took her phone and she took her brother's phone with her.
Yeah. And sneaking out, when I was high school, I would always be sneaking out and stuff. So it's kind of the thing where most teenagers, we eventually go through that phase where we do sneak out. However, in this case, it ended up in a way that nobody could ever imagine. And the big issue with that is what's happened with at the border. We know people are literally able just to walk in, and it's not like they'll get detained for a second and they release them. What do you know about the catch and release laws that were in place at that time, and if they are still in place?
I believe they are still in place. We've got election going on right now, and that's why it's super important to vote, because our votes matter and we can help make change and secure this country to have better safety and security. But I do know, from my knowledge of the policy, they can be apprehended where they're at and released that same day, because it happened for not just one of the men, it happened for both of them. They obviously were both apprehended at 2 different times, but they were still apprehended and released. Why release them? That's still, I understand the Border Patrol could only do so much. I know they wish they could have done more, but with the policies in place, there was only so much they really could have done. And essentially that falls on the Biden-Harris administration for allowing that and those policies for Border Patrol to simply not be able to do their job at their full advantage. They should.
We know Border Patrol, they want to do their job. They only can take their orders from people like Alexis, Kamala Harris, and Joe Biden. And would you blame the death of your daughter on the Biden-Harris administration?
I would blame them essentially for my daughter's death, simply because, like you said, I think every kid, and I think this is why it touches so many people, because we've all been kids before, we've all been teenagers. I snuck out dozens of times, and was glad I made it home right before my mom would wake up. And I never in a million years did I ever wonder at that time that I could die or be killed from just trying to have a night out of fun, or just simply like what she did. She wasn't even going to hang out with people. She was going to get a drink and make her way back home. She wanted a soda. I didn't care. I didn't keep soda much in the house because she would just drink it like that. But I essentially do blame the Biden administration, Harris administration policies that they have, simply because all of it really could have been prevented if they were detained, apprehended the days they were caught, and kept in these detention center beds that were available. There was over 300 available beds, empty beds, that were waiting for people to be placed in until their immigration hearing of determining if they deemed fit to be vetted and if they are actually people who will be law-abiding people here in this country. They didn't do that. So with me working with Senator Ted Cruz for pushing the Justice for Jocelyn Act, that'll enforce that. That'll force every detention bed to be filled before releasing anybody.
So they had the opportunity to hold these people back and vet them and make sure that they weren't criminals, or just to even look at who they are, and they released them into the streets.
They did.
And they gave them an ankle monitor. So that if they were to give someone an ankle monitor, that means they were suspicious of something, right? But they have no problem just putting an ankle monitor and letting that person roam around here.
Exactly. And that's where my problem is, because the last individual who was apprehended was Franklin Pena, and he was apprehended, I want to say, towards the end of May, and June 17th was when her life was taken. So not even 30 days later, max about 3 weeks from when he was released, was my daughter's blood on his hands. And it's a shame. It's a shame that the country, that the country, these policies that we have in place failed her tremendously.
Yeah. And we know your case isn't the only case. We know Laken Riley, that person that also killed her, was a suspected criminal.
Rachel Morin, Maria Gonzalez, she's another Houston little girl out in Pasadena, right outside of Houston. She was a illegal child, but she was still a child. She still should. That happened in her own home. Someone broke in her home. It's very sad. There's tons of lives that have been affected, not just personally by losing a loved one, but actually by just it touching so many hearts in this country, in this community, because everyone knows someone like her. She was just a child. I know a lot of people have a lot to say, but that punishment does not fit the crime.
Yeah, it's not justifiable at all. And have you received any letter or any condolences from the Biden-Harris administration, from Kamala Harris, as she was appointed as the border czar? She was supposed to be in control of the border.
Personally, I have not received any contact of any sort with anybody off of that team. The only thing I heard openly was on her Brett interview she had, where he played my testimony at the Congress, and she sat with him and they watched a portion of me saying my daughter's name, saying I blame the Biden-Harris administration for the policies they have. She had no remorse on her face, no remorse in her tone. She had no empathy, no sympathy to her facial expression. She gave a very open-ended apology that didn't feel like apology at all, because she said she was so sorry, had no idea how I'm going through, how me and my family are. She's right, she has no idea, because she's never attempted to reach out. But shortly after her saying she's so sorry, she immediately deflected to Trump and his problems and his issues, and you're missing the point, which is accountability. You can it takes nothing to apologize and say, I'm sorry that this happened to your child. We will work on making this country better.
Yeah.
It's that simple. It takes nothing.
Yeah, it really makes me mad to think that the person who's in charge of that leadership control, that they're in charge of that as part of their office in their time as vice president, or even president like Joe Biden or Mayorkas, that they won't take accountability for what's happening. And when it is time to take accountability and they're given the opportunity, the next thing they say is, well, Donald Trump. And even if it wasn't election season, you'd hope that that person would take accountability and say, we are so sorry, we're going to do everything we can to make sure that this does not happen again, that if there is something that does happen, we're going to do what we need to do to pass the laws and to keep our country safe, because we should take care of the people here first.
I believe the reason she hasn't given me a legitimate apology to me, per se, I feel if she was to simply apologize, that would mean her taking fault in what happened, and she doesn't want to be held accountable for it all. She doesn't blame the policy. She just rambles and doesn't speak about anything that is true and factual and the devastating factors of results for what she's pushed in this country.
When you see Kamala Harris, she was recently just here in Houston as well, and her whole entire campaign is essentially they're running on that Trump's a threat to democracy and about abortion. They're so for the rights of women and they're so for protecting women, yet when people are being killed from people outside this country that come in here illegally, where's their rights?
Most of these women, most of these individuals who are being killed, who are they? They're women. They're young ladies. They're females. What about their rights? They also are women. They also are young ladies who had their voice ripped away from them. And her campaign, her rally was her being here simply on celebrities and having all the big shot names come. I feel like she's panicking because we're getting to the very end tail of election and it's not looking good for her at all.
I've also seen you with Donald Trump at a few events. How has the support from Donald Trump been?
It's been incredible. It almost doesn't feel like I'm talking to a president. Sometimes it simply feels like I'm speaking to like an uncle or like a grandfather or someone that just has this father figureness to him and reaches out to me like a father. Someone who has kids himself. He knows what it's like to love something unconditionally, and he couldn't even fathom what would happen if this was right in front of him to his family. So the fact that he can push aside or stay backstage for 15 extra minutes while he's having a phone call with me before a debate, it's incredible. Like, you make time for the things you essentially want to make time for, and in his eyes, Jocelyn's story is impactful and it's beautiful, and she was such a beautiful little girl whose life was taken way too soon in the hands of people that had no business taking it.
I think it tells a lot about the character of an individual if they are willing to take the time out of their day to make sure that people know what's going on and to really be compassionate on that level. And I mean, Kamala Harris, she's never given birth. She's not a mother.
And that's what I thought too, right? She doesn't have children.
Yeah, she has a stepchild, but she never
gave birth to a child, held a child, created a child.
You think that maybe is where some of the lack of empathy and sympathy comes from?
I do. I truly believe that, and I feel to run this country, you have to have empathy. You have to have compassion, because then it'll truly mean something. You'll actually be fighting for something, because not only are you and the citizens of this country depend on it, your own kids depend on it. And it makes you look at life differently when you become a parent.
Yeah. And I want to really talk about the Justice for Jocelyn Act, and what will that, can you go a little bit more into detail about what the Justice for Jocelyn Act is?
The Justice for Jocelyn Act, that will essentially detain any illegal immigrant who comes here illegally, will be detained. If we have open detention center beds, they will be detained to those until their immigration hearing is held and they deem fit, vetted, that they are okay to be here. There will be GPS monitor tracking on certain individuals. Curfews are a huge thing. It's really more preventing what could have been prevented. They had every right to be in a detention center bed, and they chose not to do that based off of the policies we have. So this Justice for Jocelyn Act will enforce that. They will be forced to be placed somewhere and not be released into the country just because they came.
I recently went to El Salvador, and there they've had it for years upon years. They've had gangs control that country, and by simply going after the criminals, and by simply checking for tattoos, and looking into who these people are, they have been able to clean the whole entire country. Why don't you think here in the United States we do something as simple as, okay, if they have tattoos that are affiliated with Tren de Araguas, if they have a Jordan tattoo right here on the neck, or they have a train, they have these clocks, they have all these things that give signs that they're members of Tren de Aragua, or signs that they're affiliated with gangs, wouldn't it be a good idea to say, okay, that person's suspicious, let's make sure he's detained, and if he is a gang member, let's make sure he never comes into the country.
Exactly. Those are the protocols and the steps we should be taking, and I believe. Now, am I going to sit here and say that there won't be another Jocelyn? No, because I believe there truly will, unfortunately. As much as I'm trying my hardest to stop other little girls and other families from going through this, somehow, some way, there will be another child. But if we can fix the beginning of even letting them here in the first place, the protocols and the procedures, what it takes to do that, there would be significantly less people in danger.
Yeah, because it's not like migrant crimes haven't existed here in the United States. Even underneath Donald Trump, there were still around 2 million migrants that came in, but if you let in 10 million, you're going to get at least 4 times the amount of crimes.
Yep.
And so it's a matter of whether or not we're able to reduce what's going on here in the country. And to put American people and women first, we should protect them at all costs. Without future mothers like Jocelyn, we wouldn't be here, and the country would not be able to prosper.
Because I'm someone who's never been against immigration. I am completely for anyone and everyone who does want to come here to have a better life. You know, there's a lot of third world countries out there that are heinous and horrible, and what happens to Jocelyn happens every single day out there, and they never get justice. They never get heard. But there's a right way and there's a wrong way to do things, and people who come here the way they do, they're already committing a crime by coming here illegally. Maybe they don't have the right channels to know how to get here the correct way, but there is a right way and a wrong way. And if someone knows they are a good person and they have good intentions going to a whole different country, they shouldn't mind being on held for weeks, a couple weeks, maybe a month, to prove that they are an okay person to be here, because then that ensures the safety of everybody else here in this country.
Yeah, there's simply too much at risk to not make sure that these people are good people coming through. In America, we need migrants, and we want migrants to come in here to have a better life and to be able to pursue the American dream. But if you just let so many people in and don't vet anybody, and then you have people like your daughter who was murdered, like viciously, I don't want to get into it too much and talk with you, but she was also 12 years old, innocent. She had the rest of her life to live, and these 2 men decide to
take it from her.
Yeah, not just take it from her, do it in the way that they did it too. Was also
they saw her vulnerability and put a target on her back without her realizing it.
Yeah, and would you mind telling people how bad it was? If you don't want to talk about it, I also understand.
there's still some, obviously, I don't have an autopsy report exactly as to break down everything, but to my knowledge, she had her hands and her feet individually, like her feet and her ankles and her wrists were bounded. I don't per se know with what, whether it's rope, zip ties, string. I don't know exactly what they used. To my knowledge, her pants were not on her. Whether she had undergarments on underneath or not, I'm not too sure. She was strangled to death. They went down there a little before 1 a.m. and a little after 3 a.m. only the two men emerged. So 3 of them were down there for 2 whole hours, 120 minutes. And every day I always wonder how much of that was she in pain. I always wonder how hard did she I know she fought incredibly hard, but I want to know, I wish I could know how fast did she realize in her mind, I'm in a situation I can't get out of right now. I want to hope it was very fast. I want to hope she wasn't in pain for 2 whole hours. I want to hope that there was some sort of just easy way for her to not be here anymore. And I don't know if it was recorded. Like I said, she took her phone and her brother's phone. Her phone and her pants were found at the top of the bayou under the bridge, and she was found face down in the water, and her brother's phone was found just a few feet away from her, submerged in water as well. And they just left her there. She had scrapes on the back of her back, I'm assuming from them dragging her. She had big bruises on her feet. She still had wrinkles on her fingertips and her toes from being in the water the amount of time she was. And they went home after that and slept peacefully, I'm assuming. They went out to dinner the following night. Like, they didn't just have a child's hands in theirs.
Horrific. And to think that that happens here in America, in a first world country, by people that shouldn't even be here. Like, I have sisters, I have a mom, I have cousins, and if that were to ever happen to any of them, I hope I'd be just as courageous as you are to be able to share the story and to tell people what's going on, to let them know. Especially right now we have a time where we can vote to make a change here in America. And is there anything you'd like to say to people, mothers or anybody here in America, as now literally these little pockets of migrants are coming up in areas like Aurora, Colorado, or in small towns and across America?
I would say to please let your kids know that there's not good people here. I know there's local families and local parents that are using Jocelyn's story as a wake-up call for their kids, because, you know, kids truly do think they're invincible and that nothing bad will ever happen to them. But we pray nothing bad ever happens to them, but sometimes the devil wins sometimes when we don't want him to. And to just please bring awareness to safety, to mental health, to just please take into consideration the lives we could save by securing this country.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time, and I feel like it's my responsibility as I have gone to the border. I've seen the effects of mass migration. I've seen gang members in New York City with literally their legs chopped off, living outside of the Roosevelt Hotel. And I think more people need to be willing to voice their opinion and say, we have a time, we can make a change here in America. Let's do it, and we can't be unbiased because we're journalists or we go see what's going on. But no, if we see what we see and we know who we believe would be able to fix the situation and not keep the situation going, and someone that actually has showed results, I think it's time people speak up and share what's actually happening here in America and not be afraid to voice their opinion or to go unbiased for a moment, to really tell people the facts and to share your own opinion.
I was unbiased for a very long time. I never put myself in politics. I truly always felt our votes truly didn't matter. They just gave us the facade that we have a choice and we have an opinion, but it's always up to Congress. It's always up to who they best sees fit to run this country. But with it hitting so close to home, I never imagined being this sort of influencer, public speaker on a horrid tragedy that's happened in my life for my child. It's really opened my eyes and brought so much awareness to me that my voice really does matter, not just mine, but anyone's voice. All you have to do is speak up, and yeah, it won't stop everybody, but it will lessen, and it can help make change.
Awesome, very well said. Thank you for your time, and I hope people share this interview and let other people know what's happening. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.